before we start, Christine, I found it.
There you go.
Including the section on election of chairman and members of standing committees.
There we go.
So I'm just going to copy and paste from this.
Just that. That's good. Perfect.
All right, we all, excuse me, we set. I'll call the meeting to order. Okay, we're recording. Yes. Okay. This meeting is now in session and is being held by electronic communications using Microsoft Teams due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency.
All right. Thank you all. I'm just going to go through just a couple of bureaucratic items as we always do. First of all, coming up for policies for information and action, there's been no changes to the schedule that we've discussed last time. So you've got one policy coming for, three policies going for action through consent this week. Resources, support resources and extended time and selection of textbooks and other materials. Those were presented for information on the 6th of May. One policy coming for information this week, instructional delivery options. It's going for action on June 3rd. And the next one in June is counseling crisis management coming for information on June 24th. Everything else is in July at this point.
Just to clarify a question. Are we, Melanie, did we figure out if we have to do that policy that we're going to retire on? That has to be in motion, right? So that has to be moved to action. Did we do that?
Yeah, I made it an action.
Okay, cool. So that was not consent, but everything else is going to be.
Correct. You're right. I wasn't looking at the board agendas. I did notice in the board agenda, it is correct that it's a motion to retire that policy for the conversation.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we've closed the loop on that one, but yes.
That's correct. The agenda is correct on that. So that's the stuff that's coming up. You've also, just as aware, we approved the last time we met, we approved the schedule. If you recall, we approved the big schedule that was posted on board docs, and advisory committees were informed of that. So that's all been cleared, and a group of policies, just what our big bundle of policies that we've been working our way through here went out for public comment on board docs starting today, and advisory committees were all notified that. I actually notified them on Friday because it was such a large bundle. We decided to give them an additional weekend so they have more than their 30 days. They were ready anyway, so we thought we might as well just give them a heads up and let them work on it a little bit longer because it's such a large group. But that's moving forward nicely as well, so that's in a good place. Any questions or discussion on those things? Okay. So we don't have any policies for feedback on our revised policies for today. So we just have feedback on a number of existing policies. We did receive comments on those from David Pretty and Barbara Cannon via email. Those have been forwarded on to the various PRT members who will be shepherding the policies, as well as the comments have been filed in the PRT area where the feedback goes. So that's already been done. Those came in today. And I'm just going to kind of step through them in the order that they're appearing in the list here, which is the policy order, and see if there's any additional feedback. And we have a number of other sort of topics to chat about depending on our time permissions at the end. Does that work? Yes, that works. All right. Sure. So first one is the existing policies, and there's the policy on the school board advisory committees. And a question has already come up. Why did we crack this open? And the reason is that Christina and I are working on reorganizing all of the advisory committee policies and PIPs, and including creating a new one as part of a package. And to do that, we realized we had to adjust this policy as well. So some language needed to change, and we realized that there was at least one missing committee from the charters. The Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, which is jointly commissioned by the school system and the county government, is not listed in this policy as one of the school board committees. So there was that omission. So that's why we're doing it now, in case anybody wonders. It was approved a year ago. But then it'll come with a big bundle of PIPs too, for Barbara's.
To clarify the PIPs.
To clarify, so there'll be a
Yeah.
current design is a PIP for every advisory committee as well.
Sorry,
Yes,
I'm not
fine.
looking at it, but the other joint committees are on there, aquatics and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Okay,
JFAC,
Aquatics,
ETC.
JFAC, aquatics, they're
okay.
there. It was just an omission. It's not a big deal.
And
Yeah.
what about those things that I guess, classify them as more temporary, but the board and the county board, school board and county board, have both appointed people to, like the Career Center Working Group,
Uh,
things like that. Where does that fit in?
so this is standing committees,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
right? So there's a difference. As Robert's Rules and Orders declare, there's two types of committees. There's standing committees and special purpose committees. And those are special purpose committees which are created and then disbanded. Where standing committees are permanent committees that continue on forever. So the ones in the standing committees are the ones that are in the policy.
Do the what did you call the other ones? Temporary,
Robert's Rules of Order calls them special committees.
special. Do they have to be formally disbanded?
They normally
think
serve
by
out their purpose
definition, Yeah,
and they end.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they, so like when you create a strategic plan,
Yeah.
right? You create a strategic planning committee, but once the strategic plan is adopted, the committee's finished its work,
Okay,
and then the committee ends.
okay.
Or
As
actually,
opposed-
the Career Center Working Group is a good example that like we established a committee with a specific purpose. They did that purpose, and then once the purpose was over, they never formally disbanded because we sort of abandoned the project or put the project on hold. But had we completed the project, then they would have formally disbanded.
Well, but they submitted a Career Center Working Group final report, and we
Yeah.
adopted it. So
Yeah.
you could call that the threshold event.
Yeah, like they finished. They did the report. We're done. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a question. I lost the question. If it comes back to me, I'll bring it back. But for now, I've lost the
Starting to sound like me.
question. Reed, I'm spending too much time with you is what's happening.
Yeah.
It's rubbing off.
The old age is rubbing off.
All right. Is there anything else on the school board advisory committees?
No.
Right. So you'll be a lot more action on this one with a major redesign that Christina and I are working on right now. So,
And I'll give kind of a high level, when I do my report out, I'll do a high level overview for the benefit of our colleagues of what we're thinking, that we're gonna adjust the policy, that the policy has specifically the charges for each of the organization or each of the standing committees. And then each standing committee will have its associated BPIP, because it's a board PIP, that will follow the same template and follow the same structure that enumerates all of their internal procedures. And then we're creating the exact same parallel for the superintendent standing committees so that everything is straightforward and nice and clean and easy and boring. I like boring in these kinds of things.
that's right. This is not the opportunity for creativity.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, yeah. So it's just gonna be a template. We're just gonna use a committee template.
Yeah.
It's like a charter template, and it's gonna be exactly the same. They're just gonna fill in the blanks, and away we go. So, all right. So that's that one. Moving on to C1 goals. So just so you're aware on this one, we do intend to, while this one's going through, we do intend to revise all of the goals policies as a bundle, because generally what it does is it creates the organizational structure of the school system. It's what they originally did. And there was a goal for every department. With the reorg, that all changes.
Mhm.
And so, although we're getting some feedback now on this one, in general, once the reorg is starting to go into place and we have our new chiefs, et cetera, then we'll look back at the policy structure and then update the goals policies so that there is essentially a chartering process to define the purpose of all of the various major organizational units in the school system.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what's going to, not what you say about this one right now, but that's what's going to be happening going forward.
And
All
this specific goals one is in section C,
Mhm.
which is, it's like general school administration. So this is like the highest of the high level goals.
Yeah, this one was interesting. When the Department of Office of Planning and Evaluation was first formed,
Mhm.
they put in a lot of stuff around. They ran the strategic plan and program evaluations, and that came in at sort of at the request of the board for systematic organizational evaluation processes. So that's where it was placed there at the very, very beginning. And I think it's become more operational and routinized, and now it's just more of a regular office, I guess, at this point in time. So,
Cool.
and lots of things have changed around program evaluations and that sort of stuff, and planning and structures around that. So the policy sort of needs to be looked at from that lens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's why it's at the top, because it was sort of a board chartered thing for the strategic plan and all the program evaluations. Little history lesson.
Yeah. The more you know.
The more you know, Brian, it's relevant. At least I started all that. So, all right. So D131 financial management budget savings.
None this one. I love a 2-sentence policy.
All right, moving on. 2.35 financial management budget direction.
I don't think I had anything on this one either, because this just sells here. Oh, I know what I had on this one. We're weirdly developing a CIP every year in this 3-year cycle. So
Yeah.
I think it's just in those years when a CIP is developed, comma, get rid of the every 2 years.
Yeah.
So just so that it sets precedence that if we ever get into this scenario again where we have to do a bunch of CIPs in a row, we're technically in compliance. But yeah, that's just a technicality. It's not an actual substantive revision. I don't think I had anything substantive to this.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay. I want to point out that David made an email comment about timing that I thought was fairly insightful about how the budget direction used to come from the board much earlier. In fact, in the PIP, it comes much earlier. In his thought to look at the whole calendar, right, and looking at our annual budgeting calendar and our planning calendars and all those things, and be sure that falls in there. So we'll be sure the policy or the PIP aligns with that, whatever that is.
I will admit that I saw that he sent an email and marked it as read and did not actually read it. So I'm sure it was incredibly insightful.
No, that wasn't. I thought that was great. He observed that the budget direction used to come much earlier.
Okay.
The budget direction used to come in August, giving the staff more time to get everything done.
Yeah, and like it's coming in September or October.
Right, which is really incredibly late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know my personal opinion that the budget direction and the board's priorities should occur simultaneously and be for the same fiscal year, not concurrently for 2 different fiscal years. That's just my perspective, that the budget funds the priorities, not the other way around. But that's my 2 cents on that.
Cool.
I'll say it every time I get a chance to say it.
By all means. Okay.
Still time to run for the school board, Matt.
Yeah, that's a no thank you, help me.
You don't forget this one?
Yeah.
No thank you. But I will be happy to help the policies become outstanding. To give you the governance tools that you need and help get your other processes running smoothly.
That's like, nope.
Nope. No. I have no gray hair as it is. Next one is the financial management budget development.
Did I have anything on this one?
I don't think I had anything.
Yeah, I didn't have this one either. Hold on.
Put my notes here.
I wonder if there's anything new from VSBA model policy on this, so take a look at that. I don't think there's been any changes in code here that I'm aware of, so
Yeah, when staff actually get to writing the policy, they'll check the code, and that's
Yeah.
part of the standard
Yeah.
process. Okay.
Mhm.
Food services, number under J's. Food services vending machines.
David definitely had some comments on this one that I remember because he texted me about them and he was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was about the fact that the PIP needs to be updated because it talks about
Yeah.
Fat in the products, and we should be concerned about sugar.
That's
and
right.
Other
Fat,
nutritional stuff.
that's in these days. Yeah.
Fat's in.
That's in.
That has been, yeah.
Sugar's out.
But only if you're eating it avocados. It has to be
Yeah.
the healthy fat.
Healthy fat.
Yes, I think
you can't get bacon out of a vending machine yet.
Oh.
Okay, hold on. I'm sure I can find a vending machine where you can get bacon out of it. There are so many weird vending machines, especially in Japan. That was actually the one of I was only in Japan. I've only been in Japan for a total of 16 hours. And what I did, because I was there on a layover, and the one thing that I was adamant about doing is that I needed to find some weird vending machines. And I found vending machines that had pizza and that had ramen and like a whole bunch of stuff. And we like got some stuff out of vending machines, and then we basically went back to the airport. That was all we did for the 15 hours we were there.
And were you paying using your phone?
No, we exchanged a little bit of currency, and then we're paying with yeah.
I hear they have these machines where you just use your phone to put in the code and it charges you on something.
We have that. Like they have them in the States too, where you just like tap your phone and
Sure.
It's like the touch to pay, or it's like Apple Pay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for the record, apparently Ohio State University has a bacon vending machine.
Wow.
You said a dating?
Ohio State University has a bacon vending machine.
Oh, bacon. Okay.
These are the important questions that we discuss in the policies.
You're just sort of
Absolutely.
asking.
Here's an entrepreneurial path for us, Brian.
And there
Figure
it
out a way
is.
to get, a few ribs or, pulled pork or something, into a vending machine.
And put some of your salmon jerky in there too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that someone at the Career Center could figure this out. It'll be fine.
Yeah, but you gotta make it taste good. That's the problem.
Sign us up for Shark Tank.
Absolutely.
That's right. All meat. It's the all meat bacon vending machine. That's all it is. Turkey legs. What turkey
Melody
legs?
is reminding us of our public service duty. I love this.
Yes.
Okay, I have nothing else on this one.
Okay.
Trying to keep it together and focus.
Yeah,
I have
it's a good working relationship, right? It's kind of a highly functioning committee. Have a good time and still get to work. Okay, last one, jointly M6, jointly funded projects, financial management.
I would like to know who is going to track these MOUs going forward, but this is a longer term question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do know we need governance on MOUs, Brian. That's one of the policies that we are going to be writing. So that's a really good consideration for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since we started having these conversations, you all, even your predecessor, Christina, talked about MOUs, and from what I understand from the board, they never knew where they stood on them, right? At all. What I've done is, I've worked with India Holmes, who actually works for Leslie Peterson. And so what I've done since then, if you guys want, just make the request to me. She has now updated the whole list of MOUs, which ones are expiring, all those things. So I got that cleaned up, but it hasn't come back before this body before. So again, whenever the requests read, Christina, if you want to see MOUs or where we are, what we have, I've had that cleaned up, and it's ready to go. India is waiting for someone to see her work on this thing at the same time as well. So
for purposes of letting her show her work to us, I would love to see that.
Okay.
But really my macro concern, I don't need to micromanage that. I just want to know that we have a list of all of them so we know when they expire, what the terms are, all of that so that it's available to us at a drop of a hat. So this has actually solved that problem. We do not need to address that in the policy itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. So it's all, just FYI, it's all up to date. We got it going since this first came out.
The process guy in me, Brian, says is that should be a report annually to the school board. Here's all the current, here are all the MOUs Arlington Public Schools currently has. Here's when they're expiring.
Okay. Yep,
Right. It just so it just becomes a routine deliverable, because that's pretty big. MOUs are a pretty big deal for the school system, right? Because that's one of our major interfaces to our external partners.
That might be something for the general counsel to track long term, because all legally binding agreements.
Yep. But our process guy says that should be an annual, even if it's just a Friday letter out of once a year.
Yeah. I mean, it could be like the class size report, where it's just we get, and then we can factor it into decision making in whatever way we see fit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a routine thing that happens once a year. Here's the staff.
Really makes sense.
Right.
Sorry to have to jump back. I just realized something on planning factors. So in the PIP, for budget development, it talks about how we review our planning factors and how they're approved. I think we need to revisit that process because we haven't reviewed our planning factors with like in any sort of like a community venue or a process, so that the community can at least understand how we update them every year in quite a long time. I also don't want us to completely reinvent the wheel and open up a can of worms with this, but I think we need to find a happy medium of transparency, because planning factors are this big kind of mysterious bucket that folks don't quite understand and don't understand how they are manipulated or addressed. And actually, Reed, to your project that you're working on for your fellowship, like this all falls into that bucket as well. So.
Yeah, and that's a major driver of your budget, right? You could argue that the planning factor is the greatest factor in the budget decisions.
Yeah. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm happy to like sit down and ideate with a couple of folks if we want to do that. But I think we need to unpack those 3 paragraphs and figure out, is that the right process for where we are? And I think actually specifically Francisco should think about that, going like, what does he want this processing? That is a superintendent, or that's a staff role to develop the planning factors as of now.
Right.
But what does he want that to look like going forward?
And you're just looking at the lines 42 through 45, right? Planning factors
I'm looking at that entire 3-section plan. Yeah, but yes, 42 through 45 specifically.
Yeah. It just says they're developed. It just says that they're revised, but it doesn't really say much more to it. Yeah. Okay, that would make sense. I mean, if we're really gonna become more fiscally, careful as an organization, really thoughtful, the planning factors are
a driver.
Probably the biggest driver of our funds. A huge percentage of the funds come from planning factors.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Most of your budget's in one sentence. Planning factors. Okay. That's all yeah, it is. It's a big deal. All right. That's all the policies.
What's that?
That's it. So we did have a few more topics that we just wanted to chat about today, and we'll still get out here a little bit early. I think we had talked before about board PIPs, BPIPs. We floated the idea, and we're going to run those by the board to get their perspective on that. So sure if that's
I never did. I can do that. Adding that to the up for today. Yep.
As Brian knows, one of my jobs is to be a mild irritant.
I never said that. Yeah.
No, I said it about me.
Okay.
No, I say it about myself.
Matt added the word mild.
Yeah. He must watch my body language sometimes when it comes.
But it's a productive irritant. That's the whole thing.
It is. Like I can be a
It's like scouring powder that ultimately makes the entire thing clean, but in the process,
that's the idea. That's the idea. Rather than digging at one little spot, scour a broad area.
It's a great analogy. Yeah.
I know, right?
It's like sandpaper, smoothing out the rough edges, getting everything all glossy, perfectly clean, smooth.
Good nickname. Matt
Yeah.
Scouring Powder Smith.
There you go, scouring powder. Because I'm abrasive, Reed, is that why?
Oh, Lordy.
All right. So we had also talked about the wave of policies for August adoption, and Reed, you'd asked us about the perspectives of them. And sent you an answer back on what staff felt about that. That the discipline policies really probably should be in place before the school year starts, just because there's actions necessary based on those. The instructional ones are probably less important. But
that's before the first board meeting of the school year of the. I guess the first board meeting after school starts would be September, whatever it is, 4th.
Yeah, and the reason is I'm expecting that the board would like the actions associated with those things to be in place for the school year next year.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
And the policies are essentially done by the time, from staff's perspective, those policies are going to be done in the beginning of July, pretty much.
Yeah. And we're gonna have we'll have 2 board meetings every month, July and August.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, in addition to likely a work session that we typically have on planning at the end of August. Guessing that's going to be on there. But because of the new hires, we can't wait an entire summer of not having a board meeting and then have all these new hires who need to be approved by the school board, but they've really been hired, back in July.
Yep.
So, to keep all of that current, we need to have periodic board meetings. They could be smaller, where we just say, to Francisco, or we just say, yes, these have been hired, yes, approved,
So as you're thinking that we could use one of those short board meetings to just move a bunch of these policies forward rather than having a work session, is that kind of the concept there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
likely, depending on the timing. Yeah.
Right. So right now they are penciled in our schedule for mid-July. So we're essentially going to be ready.
Okay.
To present those information by mid-July. That's our current target.
So Francisco's talking about, let's see, what do we get, a calendar?
Let me look at the actual date on our calendar. So I've got them on July 22nd, but that's an arbitrary date because you haven't actually set your board meetings, so we guessed.
Yeah, I think he was talking about the 15th and the 29th, or maybe the 22nd and the 29th.
So July 15th and July 29th?
I think it's the 15th and the 29th. Because talking about how it's going to be from the 1st to the 15th, it was 2 full weeks. I remember we had this conversation in the context of when I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. And the week that I'm going to Fort Lauderdale, there's not a conflict, but it's the week after that we'll do the 1st, the 15th, and the 29th. Was what Barbara was mentioning during the cow, or at the end of the cow, the other day.
That would make sense. So I should tell the PRT to shoot. We're going to pencil in shooting for getting those policies ready for information on July 15th. That's what we're going to target. If we, just so that they know that they want to be ready at that point in time. And then if something happens and we get delayed, okay, but they'll be ready for that.
Yeah, but emphasize the word pencil or penciling it in, because we won't have an official calendar for a while,
Right. Right now they're targeting July 22nd instead. So if I move it up a week and then they're ready a week earlier, okay, they can sit on it. They can sit and hold for a week if necessary.
But even if we don't introduce them until the 29th, which is the very end of July, there will be another meeting before the school year begins. Because I think school is scheduled to start the 23rd of August, right?
Sounds correct.
That sounds about right. So that means that we would have a meeting either on the 12th, the 5th, the 12th, or the 19th. one of those three, we'll have another meeting where we could approve them, where we can have action.
Wait, the school for students?
That's what I thought.
Well,
This-
that's 2 weeks before Labor Day.
The start of school for students is Monday, the 30th of August. They
Oh,
get,
well, I'm looking at the wrong week. My bad.
Okay, and so we don't have so our first board meeting after the student school year begins would be, what, the 2nd? Or the 9th?
probably the 9th.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
because that'd be after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then if I'm counting backwards from the 9th, then it would be, so it would be 29th of July, 12th of August, 26th of August, 9th of September.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will work with the PRT to have
Mm-hmm.
the policies ready for the very beginning of all that.
That'll be great. That'll be great.
All right. And so then if we need to hold them for another 2 weeks, or you decide to shift the schedule by a week, or whatever you decide to do, they'll still be ready. I would hate to just miss a date, right? Rather than getting it. So I'll let the PRT know about that. We'll shoot for info on the 15th. That's a penciled in date. But they should be ready for information on the 15th.
That would be great. I think that'll that'll allow for comment at the meeting, and then we don't need to come up with any other additional structures. We can just go with our normal procedures.
That works.
Sweet. Excellent.
Another topic we'd had was that was going to be talked about at the board, I believe, is moving content through amendment. Remember we had that conversation?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
essentially saying that when we change policies, sometimes we end up with remnants, which is a little something that was left that belongs in another policy, but don't want to crack over the other full policy at this moment in time. Right. Right now, there's no way to deal with that. So the proposal was to be able to amend a policy which doesn't reset the clock by taking existing content and changing it and moving it to a different policy word for word. You can't edit the content at all,
Moving it.
other than like a little code change or something like that, or
Yeah.
like a title change of a department or something silly like that. But we're not revising it, just through amendment, and the purpose is to eliminate remnants.
So I had the conversation with Barbara, and she didn't see any issues with it. I had the beginning of the conversation with both David and Monique, and got interrupted for other reasons that have come up. So I'm going to add an action item to circle back with them this week and then get back to you. But so far, no concern. Like even in the early conversation that I had with both of them, no concerns they didn't raise any concerns about it. So I just want to circle back and confirm with them that they're okay with it. Yeah.
All right. I have an idea to float to you. This is just a concept.
Oh boy.
As part of our leadership development process, we are looking at how to give leaders more experience with governance, or potential future leaders. And one of the things that we're thinking about having them do is to help policies work through the process. Okay. And as part of that, the expectation, a concept is that they would actually do the presentation to the board of the policy. Right?
Cool.
And present to the subcommittee at a meeting, just to get used to that. Just this is how governance works. Any concern? There was nothing submitted to. We've not agreed to anything. We're floating ideas. We're getting senses, temperature of the room, sort of a thing. Any concerns with it?
Love it.
No, I don't have any concerns. So let's spitball for a minute. So this would be a episodic thing of theirs in their future leaders' trajectory? I mean, would they be assigned to the PRT for a 6-month stint or something?
Yeah, no, we're not looking at it as a PRT rotation process, although we're thinking about that. No, this is a one-time event. So you're working on your ed leadership program through the George Mason cohort. You need to have some practicum. As part of that practicum, you could shepherd a policy through the process. That's 6 months engagement and just one policy, and it would work its way through. We were thinking policies that were probably less controversial. You know, I don't think I'd ask somebody to rewrite the discipline policy, but they could probably do vending machines. You know, so a lot of the policies you're looking at today, vending would have been perfectly reasonable. Vending machines, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They're not hot, but they still would learn an awful lot. Form the committees, present it to the PRT. The PRT still would review it, does all the quality control and all those things, right? So we're not losing any quality control. They're just there's a workflow, there's a process. They're just stepping it through the process to be sure that all the steps are being done in the process.
It's almost like they're shadowing you.
Well, they're actually think about it as a mini project manager.
Yeah.
Project manager running it, but it's really a process because it's not a project because it's unique. It's not unique, right? But they're following the process. So this step and this step and this step. Well, let's get the public comment. So here's what it says. Now form the committee. Okay. Take what the committee says. Let's put it on pen to paper. They probably wouldn't be writing the policy, but they'd be sure that happened. Okay, now we're going to present to the PRT. What did the PRT say? Okay. Just work it through.
And then they'd be responsible for adjudicating the comments that come from the community sector and also from the board and dealing with those, with the PRT, with those. And sounds good. Good.
There's a fairly mechanical way to do all that. You know, you form the committee, you bring the people to the committee saying, here's what the public said. What are we going to do about it? Right. And then you just incorporate that sort of stuff because they're not necessarily to be subject matter experts on the topic. Right. So they wouldn't necessarily be putting pen to paper, but they would be facilitating the process.
And what about those? Sorry, what about those policies or PIPs that have kind of multiple that spill over into multiple the themes spill over into multiple policies? Would you just try and keep them away from those into something more singular, like vending machines or something?
Yeah. This is very much, the specifics are very much a development read. And that's why I love having these conversations, because every time I have a conversation like this, I'm gaining some more insights, we're tweaking the proposal, but we're trying to keep them simple and pure, right? That's sort of that concept. If it's got legs and tendrils, those can become overly complicated. The PRT will continue to do those. It's just the more straightforward ones like vending machines.
I like this idea. I also think that this is a way that we can have folks build subject matter expertise in things that might not be their innate area of expertise, where you're dealing with a policy. Like if you are an instructional person and you're dealing with an ops policy, if you want to be in leadership, you will need to know at least a little bit of ops, no matter what leadership role you're taking. Absolutely. Because you need to understand how your role intersects with their role. So here, have an ops policy.
Yep.
And vice versa.
That's exactly right.
This is policy, and then having to learn a little bit about whatever that is. That's a really great idea. I like this.
Thank you. I thought so.
Cross-functional alignment. Yay!
Well, systematic professional learning, building leadership skills in our leaders. It's part of our leadership pipeline process, actually. So all the pieces all fit together. So anyway, so that sounds like that's good news. So you'll have more about that going forward. We have to partially voted by the PRT. We've got some positive feedback. We've got a lot of positive feedback from lots of different people on it. So it's just a matter of we'll slowly start to build this. We'll probably pilot a couple of them with people and just see if it gets legs and how it sort of works out. But it seems like a good opportunity. It
is.
Why not? And teach some more people about governance.
Right.
That's our leaders should understand governance. So let's let them learn that.
If nothing else, we'll build some more awareness of how intricate our policies are and that they exist. And so you'll have another generation of up and coming leaders within the system who are like, oh yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah.
That's a big part of the why of our success. It's part of our succession planning work. Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and making more people policy aware will hopefully lead to better governance for the school system too.
Yeah.
Okay. That was that. Christina, you had one topic we spoke this morning you wanted to bring up. What was it? Do you remember what it was?
It was related to the updates, and we said, let's talk about that with Reed and Brian, and now I can't remember what it was.
I'm not remembering either. Was it about the 90-day plans? Was that it?
The 90-day plans.
Was it the board rep for the 90-day plan? No, not that one? Community involvement on that? No?
Although we should talk about the 90-day plans with these two.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if it triggers my memory, but while you're explaining the question about the 90-day plans, let me keep.
I did the same thing you did.
We should have written this down.
I should have written it down immediately. I did not. Oh, I'm kicking myself. All right. So this is sort of a question. This is Christina looking at the policies for the planning and the committees. There's one which talks about the requirement to have a school community involvement of parents, et cetera, in writing the 90-day plans. And including a school board liaison who's kept informed of all of that. We wanted to get a sense. This, by the way, it's not required under the Code of Virginia. I checked, so that'll be something of an APS thing, not a code thing. The question is, what's the feel about that? What's your sense about whether that would lead to good plans, better involvement? I can see trade-offs both ways on that.
When we brought this for feedback way back when, a couple of months ago, the feedback that Dave provided is that he was not aware. Dave said that he had, even as a PTA president, he had no idea that this had existed in the past. And I think that was the key piece of feedback, that we weren't sure if we know that school plans exist, but having a school plan advisory committee was not a structure that he had been aware of in the past. And then when we had the conversation, we were all like, I'm sure that this is something that some schools do, but others do not. And so the macro question is, this is a norm that had existed on paper, but was not enforced. And so what would the repercussions be of really enforcing this going forward? And is that actually an action that we as a leadership team want to take, or is that not, or is our efforts focused better in other places? And actually, I think that this is at a macro point, this is like a Francisco question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So she stated it much more clearly than I did. Thank you, Christina. Because it's a whole question about system of schools perspective, right? Some schools doing it, some schools not. We want to be sure what's ever in the policy or the PIP.
Yeah.
We expect everybody to do this. Mm-hmm. And if you don't expect everybody to do it, then it shouldn't be in the policy.
And the question is, should we seek the community for input on this? Is that the gist of it?
Well, so there's the policy actually talks about a committee who's actually helping to write the plan, which is very, very different than soliciting feedback from people and listening, right? And taking the feedback into consideration, but the staff end up writing the plan. So there's it's a
committee that will help write the plan. Well, personally, and if I may, with this leadership team, the community input thing is something that's totally new to me. I'm almost OD'd on it. Simply to a fact where we've seen what happened with the Career Center Working Group. We see what happened there. And so I'm not used to it. And I think it gets in the way, by the way, and our job is to inform them. It just creates a lot of problems for me, as far as the emails when we don't do what they say. And I get the board emails, the superintendent emails, and also to me, I know it's on paper right now. My sentiment is no.
If this is something that we want to retire, we have to make a proactive decision to retire it. Mm-hmm. And we have to make that choice and understand the implications of that choice. Okay. Like, granted, I don't think this is something that anyone has actually been, or to my awareness, this is not something that is being widely implemented as a process. So if it were to be retired, I don't know that we're going to see a ton of backlash. But if we are going to revise the policy and put the policy forward again, we need to make sure that it is something that we're willing to commit to. And that, I think, is the macro question. And this one, we were talking about it, and Matt, this was the question that we wanted to bring up with these
Okay,
two.
I thought so.
Yeah, because I went back and there's nothing else. But the macro question is this a structure that we think will make our school plans, in this case, the 90-day plans, because that's the current operating or the current model of the school plans. Do we think that by having this kind of a structure in place at the school level that they will improve the plans? Or do we think that the way that we're currently doing it is sufficient? The other thing is that we don't have a chief of school support to opine, who is going to be the person tasked with supporting principals to be able to do this. So we were having the conversation about it this morning during our check-in, and it just raised a lot of questions. So I think that it's probably merits a longer discussion to figure out where we want to go.
And I'm glad you added the chief of the school support in there too. That person needs to weigh heavily on this one as well. But this is something, like you said, it's a question for the superintendent as well, right? And so this is something I can, in my daily briefing, mention to him as well that we discussed. But I like the fact that we brought up the chief of school support, and I think that person needs to really weigh heavily on that, despite how I feel about community input.
I mean, perhaps this is something we had this one on the schedule for this year, but maybe this one might need to wait until we have that chief of school support in place.
Yeah.
I know that we just approved the policy, the plan, but
yeah,
we can modify.
Yeah, and I can almost say I've been working with him, talk to him daily for the last 10.5 months, the superintendent. When I present this to him and also put the caveat about the chief of school support, he's going to automatically say, wait
until they get here.
Yep, I meet with the man enough, I feel like 90% sure that's what he would say. But I'll still ask him though.
The policies are not due for adoption until November or December,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so we have ample time to weigh in on the chief of school support. This is at the very, very, very beginning of the process right now.
Yeah.
But this is one of the first ones we popped up and said, okay, there's a real question here. This is a real honest to goodness question. And as we're shifting from a system of schools to a school system, this is something we want to look out through that lens and saying, this is something we expect everybody to do and then enforce that. And the policy should support that, whatever that is.
Whatever the process ends up being. So I think that we're the likely conclusion, Brian, you're going to bring this to Dr. Durant anyways, but the likely conclusion is that we'll kind of slow walk this one a little bit and make sure that once we have a chief of school support in place, that they have a very heavy hand or have the opportunity to have a pretty heavy hand in refining this process until it becomes something that they think that that is going to be productive, that is going to be, I think if my understanding of timing is right, the earliest we'll have a chief of school support in place will likely be by like September. And that would be if we did a really quick hiring process for it. I don't know if Brian was saying something. I don't think he is.
He just stepped away. He would know. I would have no idea.
Okay. So I think that the earliest you would have someone would be by like September. So that might be a little.
I thought Francisco said that posting is out.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that's what he said. And that they're expecting to have something in June or much closer to the beginning of the fiscal year.
If we are, then that is even better.
Yeah. Let's ask Brian when he comes back. I think he'd probably have it better.
Walked out just the wrong time.
Yeah.
I don't see it open right now, but yeah, it is open.
Chief of
Close
School
date
Support
is
open.
5/21. There we go. Okay, even better.
Okay.
So then that
Close
means
it.
that we'll have
When does it close?
5/21
4 days.
Friday.
for
okay.
Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that may work out, Christina. So if that means that they would probably be shooting to have this person in place on July 1st, right?
Yeah.
In which case we'll have this like we I don't know that we actually want to make any modifications of this, but this would be one of the first things that's going to end up falling on their lap, among many other things, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
one of the things that'll have to fall on their lap is like, hey, we need to revisit. This is coming up. We need to
Right.
revisit this. When is this bundle going to go to public comment?
So it would be, if it was going to be going for adoption it would be going for public comment in about September.
So that would give them enough, if they're starting in July, then that would give them enough time to get their sea legs and also have some significant input on the draft before it goes to public comment.
Yeah, let me look here. So we're doing for adoption November. So that'll be public comment in August, probably.
Okay.
But we can push them back a month. I mean, it's not.
Push it back a month.
That's never a problem. The most important thing is to get it done right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is just, remember, this is just a PIP.
This one's just a PIP.
It's
Right.
a PIP.
Right.
So
right,
we
right.
could also say everything went forward except for this one PIP. Right.
Okay.
And it's not one of the standing advisory committees either.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's sort of an outlier on that one. So that PIP could say it's being looked at, but it's not ready right now.
That's fine.
So
Okay.
I think
Cool.
we'll be all right.
Brian, we answered our own question without you.
Okay, that was a superintendent just now. So
Okay.
that's the only reason I leave the screen, you all. No.
No, it's fine. We were trying to figure out when the chief of school support is supposed to start.
Oh, I was going to answer that question. I think it's way before September.
I know. We figured that out. We're
Okay,
very-
yeah. What we try to do, we're trying to create a culture here where we try to set a date and work backwards. So the person may be in place, I would say, by hopefully July, if everything works out properly.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get great rock star candidates.
Yep. I talked to, I know in the COO position, basically there are a lot of former superintendents who are applying for those jobs. Yeah. So that basically the interest in all of our jobs is very rigorous, if that's the right word for that. So, and we're trying to set everybody up here just to make sure we can present something to the board. We won't have everybody on board before August, and that's the goal that we're shooting for.
Good.
Amazing.
I know.
Love it. Okay.
All right.
Well, we have solved all the problems. Go team.
Great.
That was it.
All right, great.
All right. Super.
All right, great.
And we've still got a few minutes, right? Yeah.
We have
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So, anybody else? If we're done, I'll adjourn us.
Right.
No?
Great.
Okay. Well, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Melanie.